Liam Harper sat in the front row of the auditorium, watching the aliens take their seats with the sort of detached curiosity he'd grown accustomed to. The university had become a strange place for him, a place where he was surrounded by extraordinary beings, creatures from distant planets, each with abilities that seemed to defy everything Liam knew about the limits of biology and technology. But none of them knew what he could do. He adjusted his glasses, his hand brushing against his notepad as he tried to steady the nerves building in his chest. Today was the day. The day he would show them all what it truly meant to be human. "Attention, students!" The professor's voice echoed through the room. "Today's lesson is not about galaxies, data streams, or quantum theory. Today, we witness something truly unique, a demonstration of human memory. Or so it's said. We've heard rumors of a certain human student with extraordinary recall abilities. Well, today, we put that to the test." Liam's heart skipped a beat as his eyes flicked toward the front. There stood Zifra, an alien from the planet Zoranis. Their species was known for a photographic memory, a memory so sharp, so precise, that it could recall every detail, every fleeting moment, perfectly, as if the mind had recorded it like a camera. For years they'd prided themselves on their superior ability to remember, until they'd heard of Liam. Zifra's gaze met his from across the room, a sharp glint in their alien eyes. A challenge. Liam felt the tension coil in his stomach, but he didn't flinch. He'd known this moment was coming. Zifra had been eyeing him for weeks, intrigued by the whispers about his gift. The whispers that hinted at a memory not only of words and images but of feelings, of the very essence of every moment he'd ever experienced. "You human!" Zifra's voice rang out, smooth and confident, like a voice from a higher plane. "You claim to have a memory beyond anything we've seen. Let's see how you match up to Zoranis' best." Liam stood. He had no choice. The challenge had been issued, and he couldn't back down, not now, not in front of everyone. But as he walked toward the center of the room, a cold wave of apprehension washed over him. He didn't want to reveal his gift. It was too much. It made him different. And that difference had always been a burden. Zifra spoke again. "I will recount a conversation I had with one of my superior officers just a month ago. The mission was of great importance, and I recall it as if it were yesterday. Listen closely, human. Your memory is about to be tested." Liam's hands clenched at his sides. Zifra was confident, almost smug, in their abilities. But Liam knew something they didn't. Memory wasn't just about remembering words and events. It was about feeling them. And humans had a strange ability to cling to the emotions tied to those moments, even when everything else faded. Zifra's voice filled the room, recounting every detail of a briefing, the conversations with their superior officer. Each sentence was delivered with mechanical perfection. The words were crisp, the facts unyielding. There was no pause, no hesitation. The memory was flawless in its precision, but there was something about it that felt hollow. Liam exhaled slowly, his heartbeat steady. His turn was next. He took a step forward and cleared his throat. "I'm going to recount a conversation I had with my younger brother, Matthew, the last time we went hiking in the woods together," Liam began. His voice was steady, but inside, he was acutely aware of the weight of the moment. This wasn't just about proving something. It was about revealing a part of himself that he had long hidden. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the memory come alive. It wasn't just words that he remembered. It was the sounds, the rustle of leaves underfoot, the distant call of birds in the trees, the warmth of the sun against his skin. And then, he began. It was a Sunday morning, the sun barely rising above the tree-line, casting long shadows on the dirt path. Matthew was talking about how he wanted to join the military. His voice had that nervous edge to it, like he wasn't sure if it was something he should admit aloud. I remember telling him that I didn't think he should. He looked at me, confused at first, but I could see the uncertainty in his eyes. "Why not?" he asked, his brow furrowed in the way it always did when he was questioning something. Liam paused for a moment, letting the silence hang in the air as the room listened, enraptured by his words. It wasn't just the facts he was relaying. It was the emotion behind them, the layers of sentiment wrapped around each syllable. I told him I didn't think he was cut out for it. I told him he was too smart, too kind, and that the world could use more people like him, not more soldiers. He didn't argue with me. He just nodded, a quiet acceptance in his eyes, and then we kept walking, the conversation fading as we moved deeper into the forest. Liam opened his eyes, looking directly at Zifra. The alien's expression was unreadable, their eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made Liam's stomach churn. Zifra's voice broke the silence. Impressive. But it is still just emotion. You remember what was felt, not what was said, not the facts. My memory. Your memory, Liam interrupted, his voice growing stronger. May recall the facts, but it's missing something. You see, we humans, well, we don't just remember events. We remember how they made us feel. The smallest details, the little things you might think insignificant, they matter to us. The way my brother's voice cracked when he asked why I didn't think he was suited for the military. The way I saw him change in that moment, even though he never said a word in response. Zifra's eyes narrowed. You claim that emotion is the key? Liam nodded. It is. Your memory might be perfect in its precision, but it lacks the context. Without that emotional layer, the facts are just data. They're meaningless. It's the way we feel the moments that gives them weight. It's the feeling behind the memory that makes it real. The room fell into a heavy silence. Even the other students, human and alien alike, were transfixed by the exchange. They had never seen a human stand so confidently in front of an alien, especially one as powerful as Zifra. Zifra stood still for a moment, their eyes locked with Liam's. For the first time, the alien seemed unsure. It was a subtle shift, but it was there. They had never considered that something so human, so fragile, so emotional, could hold such power. Finally, Zifra spoke. I was wrong, they said, their voice no longer filled with arrogance but with something else, something closer to respect. Your memory, it is different. It is more than just facts. It is deeper. Liam's chest tightened, but he didn't back down. Yes, it is. That's what makes us unique. We remember more than just the surface. We remember everything, the good, the bad, the moments that shape us. The challenge had been met. And for the first time, Zifra didn't seem so invincible. Liam stood at the center of the room, the air thick with anticipation. Around him, both human and alien students watched, their eyes fixed on the unfolding duel. The challenge had been issued, and he had no choice but to face it head-on. Zifra, the alien from Zoranis, was poised, ready to demonstrate the superiority of their photographic memory. Liam had heard the rumors, seen the demonstrations in class. Zifra's mind worked like a flawless machine, each fact, each figure, stored in perfect precision, without flaw or hesitation. It was the kind of memory that made humans seem like nothing more than flawed vessels, incapable of matching such advanced capabilities. But Liam wasn't just any human. He wasn't sure what he was. Maybe it was his neuropsychology background or the inexplicable condition that made his memory function beyond the ordinary. Maybe it was the burden of remembering every single detail, every word, every glance, every piece of fleeting emotion, that had driven him to become the person he was. It was a gift and a curse, one that had made him an outsider in the human world, and now, it would make him stand apart from Zifra. Zifra cleared their throat, and the room went silent. I'll begin, they said with a sharp, confident tone. A conversation with my superior officer, Chief Archivist Ozer, during a critical moment in a diplomatic meeting with the Rithians. Their fleet was preparing to encroach on our borders, and the discussions were tense. I will recount it in its entirety. Liam nodded and braced himself. Zifra's memory would be flawless in the technical sense. There was no doubt about it. They began to speak, their voice smooth and crisp, as though each word was encoded into their being. I remember the exact moment Ozer questioned our stance on the Rithian threat. Zifra, Ozer said, do you believe the Rithians are ready for peace talks, or should we prepare for war? I responded immediately, calculating all possible scenarios in the moment. We must not underestimate them, I said. But war, while inevitable, is not yet necessary. Diplomacy is the key. Zifra's tone was unwavering, and they continued to recount every word of the conversation in flawless detail. The facts were all there, the positions, the dialogue, the decisions. It was everything Liam had expected. But something felt off. The words were perfect, but they lacked something. Zifra didn't speak of feelings or expressions, nor did they reflect on the weight of the moment. It was just data, clean, efficient, and sterile. Liam swallowed, then took his turn. He wasn't sure if Zifra would understand what he was about to do. He wasn't sure if anyone would. But this wasn't a contest of raw memory. It was a contest of depth, of meaning. I remember a conversation I had with my father last year. Liam began, his voice steady despite the pressure building in his chest. It wasn't a big conversation. In fact, it was almost a non-event. But it stuck with me. He paused, searching for the words. We were sitting at the kitchen table, the way we always did, and he was reading the newspaper. It was early morning, too early, even for him. He glanced over at me and said, "Liam, do you ever wonder what you're meant to do in this world?" I could hear the weight in his voice, even though he wasn't making eye contact. He never did when he asked something serious. Liam looked out at the crowd. His gaze fell on Zifra, who watched with rapt attention. They were listening, but they couldn't understand. Not yet. I didn't say anything at first. But I could feel something in that silence, something deeper than just the question itself. My dad had spent his whole life working for others, never asking for anything in return, never questioning whether his efforts had purpose. But in that moment I saw it. He wasn't just asking me what I wanted to do. He was asking himself. He was asking us, me, him, everyone, what it all meant. And that question, simple as it was, hit me harder than anything he'd ever said before. Liam's voice trembled slightly, but he pushed through. I told him I didn't know. I wasn't sure I had an answer. But I promised him that whatever it was, I wouldn't forget the weight of the question. I promised him that I would keep looking for meaning in everything, no matter how small. A few seconds passed in silence. Liam didn't look away from Zifra this time. He could see the subtle tension in their posture, the unease that had begun to creep into their once unshakable confidence. It wasn't about the facts of the conversation. It was about the feeling, the raw vulnerability that was woven into every word. The moment wasn't just remembered in perfect clarity, it was felt. Zifra broke the silence first. It seems, you focus on the emotional weight of memory, rather than the content. Liam nodded slowly. Yeah. For me, it's not just the words that matter. It's what's behind them. The emotion, the intent, the why. The things we can't always put into a neat box but still linger with us, shaping the way we move forward. Zifra seemed to consider this, their brow furrowing in contemplation. But isn't it the facts that matter most? The precision, the accuracy? Without them, everything else is irrelevant, isn't it? Liam shook his head. Maybe to you. But for humans, it's never just about the facts. Our lives are defined by the connections we make, by the emotions we carry with us. The facts can be forgotten, but the way something made us feel? That stays with us forever. Zifra seemed to struggle with the concept, the alien mind working at full speed to process the idea that had been presented. But without the facts, how can you be sure you've remembered it correctly? How do you know you aren't distorting it? How do you trust a memory that is shaped by emotion? Liam smiled softly. Because it's true. It's real. You can't fake the way something made you feel, Zifra. Not the real moments, anyway. No amount of perfect recall can replace the truth of a memory, the truth of a feeling. For a long moment, Zifra was silent. The room was tense, the students watching the exchange with wide eyes. Then, at last, Zifra spoke, their voice quieter than before, almost hesitant. Perhaps there is more to memory than I thought. Their gaze met Liam's, and for the first time, there was no arrogance in their eyes, just the faintest hint of humility. I did not expect this, from a human. Liam's heart skipped a beat. He had won, not by showing the superiority of his memory, but by revealing the power of human emotion, the thing that no alien, no machine, could replicate. It was something deep within, something that made humans unique in a universe full of cold, unfeeling logic. I'm not sure I understand it fully yet, Zifra admitted. But I will try. You've shown me something I never considered. Liam nodded. Sometimes the things that make us human are the hardest to explain, Zifra. But they're real, and they're what make us who we are. Zifra looked at him for a moment longer, as if seeing him for the first time. Then, with a small, respectful nod, they turned away, signaling the end of the duel. The crowd was still, uncertain of what they had just witnessed. But Liam didn't care. He had shown them all the truth about what it meant to be human, not the memory of words, but the memory of feeling. And that, he knew, was more powerful than anything. Zifra's challenge had been nothing more than a distant memory, until now. The duel had begun with the crispness of a formal contest, but something had shifted. As the room fell into a heavy silence, Liam could sense it, the shifting in Zifra's demeanor. It was subtle, but undeniable. The alien's confidence had wavered. The tables had turned, not because of precision or raw facts, but because of something far deeper, something human. Zifra blinked, as if coming to terms with the impossibility of what Liam had just done. The tension in the air was thick, and Liam felt it like a weight on his chest. He had never expected to face someone like Zifra in such a way. But there was no turning back now. The challenge was more than just a contest of memory. It was about understanding what separated humans from everyone else, what made them different in ways that couldn't be measured in numbers or data. Zifra stepped forward, their usually calm, measured movements now slightly strained. Their voice was quieter than before, almost uncertain. I've never encountered a memory like yours, human, Zifra said. You claim that memory is more than just facts, more than mere details. But I still don't understand. How can you trust a memory shaped by emotions, by feelings, when those feelings can distort reality? Liam's heart raced as he met Zifra's gaze, feeling the weight of the alien's words. This was the heart of the challenge, the crux of their struggle. It wasn't just about proving that human memory was unique. It was about showing that memory, in its truest form, was never just about the surface. It was about everything beneath it. Emotion is not distortion, Liam replied, his voice firm but calm. It's what makes the memory real. It's what makes it alive. You can remember everything exactly as it happened, but that doesn't give you the full picture. It's like reading a textbook. You can understand the facts, but you won't understand the story. Zifra's eyes narrowed, clearly unconvinced. But without facts, how do you know that your memory is not flawed? If you're so reliant on emotion, how can you be sure the memory is accurate? How do you know you're not altering it, making it something it wasn't? Liam shook his head slowly. Accuracy is important, sure. But you can't forget that our memories are shaped by us. We don't just recall events, we live them. And it's that living, that depth, that's more important than any set of facts. Humans, remember how something felt, how it impacted us. That's the truth of it. That's what gives it weight. Zifra's gaze was intense, searching Liam's face, perhaps looking for some sign of weakness. But there was none. The alien's mind seemed to be processing the words, turning them over in a way that didn't quite make sense to them. Feelings, Zifra muttered. Feelings are subjective. They cannot be trusted. They are the most reliable part of memory, Liam said, his voice unwavering. Because they don't lie. You may forget the exact words someone said, but you'll never forget how they made you feel. That's what stays with you. That's what we hold on to, what makes us human. Zifra's expression flickered. There was something there, something unexpected. For the first time, they didn't appear as the unshakable, superior being they had been when the duel began. There was a vulnerability, a crack in the facade, and it wasn't lost on Liam. Zifra was struggling to reconcile their perfect recollection with the humanity they now saw before them. They had spent their life defining intelligence and memory as data, as fact, but now, before them, stood a human who had shown them that memory was something far more complex, something they couldn't process with their raw, mechanical precision. I don't understand, Zifra admitted, their voice low, almost thoughtful. How can you accept that the memories you hold might be distorted? How do you live with that uncertainty? Liam didn't have an immediate answer. The question hit deeper than he expected. How did he live with it? His gift for memory, this curse, as he often thought of it, meant he never forgot anything. The faces, the conversations, the small moments that made life what it was. He didn't forget the hurt, the loneliness, the joy of a shared laugh with a friend. But there was no room for peace in that. His mind was cluttered with every emotion, every word, every glance, all replaying endlessly. The moments were vivid, but they were often overwhelming, sometimes unbearable. I don't have the luxury of forgetting, Liam finally said, his voice softer than before. But that's not the point. What matters is that the feelings, the emotions, make the memory. Without them, it's just an empty event. A list of things that happened. And in the end, they don't matter. It's the connections we make, the ways we touch others' lives, that's what shapes us. Zifra looked down for a moment, their posture shifting as though the weight of Liam's words was sinking in. They had been so sure that memory was about accuracy, about cold precision, about storing and recalling information as it happened. But here was Liam, human, flawed, emotional, showing them that memory wasn't about perfection. It was about meaning. Zifra glanced up again, their expression unreadable. You say that memory shapes you. That the emotions define it. But how do you cope with remembering everything, with carrying all of it? The joy, the pain, the loss, how do you carry it without breaking? Liam let out a breath, the question hitting harder than he expected. He didn't always cope. His memories often haunted him, every fight, every moment of grief, every laugh, every kiss. They all lingered, a constant presence in the back of his mind. But somehow, he had learned to carry it. Maybe it was the very act of remembering that allowed him to heal. Maybe it was the way he could look back at the past and see both the beauty and the pain that made him human. I don't know how to stop it, Liam said, his voice quiet now. But I do know this, it's the memories that make me who I am. Without them, without the feelings that come with them, I wouldn't be me. I wouldn't understand myself, or anyone else. Zifra studied him for a long moment, the alien's mind still working to process the human perspective they had just encountered. The silence stretched between them, thick with the weight of the unspoken. Finally Zifra spoke, their voice soft but sincere. Perhaps there is more to memory than I've allowed myself to see. Perhaps I've been wrong about what it means to remember. There was a pause then, almost as if a weight had been lifted. They added, You've shown me that there is something in memory that I've never understood before. Liam gave a small nod, a quiet satisfaction filling him. He hadn't just won the duel, he had opened Zifra's eyes to a different way of thinking. A way that valued more than just the cold, perfect recollection of events. A way that embraced the humanity of memory, with all its imperfections and its beauty. It was, after all, the human way. And it was something no alien, no machine, could ever replicate. Liam's heart pounded as Zifra took another step back, their expression unreadable. The duel, which had once seemed like a straightforward challenge, had transformed into something deeper, more complicated. He had expected to face an alien who would triumph effortlessly with their perfect recall, their flawless memory. Instead, he had forced Zifra to confront something they couldn't quite grasp, something beyond their telepathic clarity and photographic precision. Zifra's eyes flicked to the other students in the room, their gaze searching, almost lost. The silence was thick, stretching longer than either of them had anticipated. This wasn't just a battle of memory anymore. It was a battle of perspectives, of understanding what it meant to truly remember. It was about how memory shaped not just the mind, but the very soul of a being. And Zifra was struggling to reconcile their own beliefs with the human experience of memory Liam had shown them. Why does it matter so much to you? Zifra's voice broke the silence, almost a whisper. They spoke more to themselves than to Liam. Why do you hold on to every single moment, every word, every feeling? Their gaze was distant, searching for the meaning behind the question they couldn't quite articulate. I can see the weight in your eyes, in the way you recall every detail. It's not just knowledge to you. It's something else. Liam took a deep breath. He'd known this moment would come. It had to. He had made the mistake of thinking that his gift, his curse, was something to hide. That it made him different, maybe even alien. But the truth was, he had never been as separate from those around him as he thought. The challenge with Zifra wasn't just about memory. It was about understanding what it meant to be human. It matters because it's how we connect, Liam said quietly, his voice carrying across the room. He let the weight of the words settle. Memory is how we make sense of the world. It's the way we remember who we are and how we relate to others. It's not just about the facts or the data. It's about the experiences we carry with us. The feelings we've had and the people we've been. Zifra blinked, their mind clearly processing the complexity of what Liam was saying. They had never considered memory in this way. For them, it had always been a perfect machine, clean, efficient, and without flaw. A record of things as they were. But Liam had shattered that view. And now, Zifra wasn't sure what to believe. How do you carry all that weight? Zifra asked, their voice trembling with something Liam hadn't expected, vulnerability. The pain, the joy, the mistakes. How do you live with it all? Liam paused, the question hitting harder than he'd expected. He'd never really thought about it that way before. How did he live with the weight of his memories? The constant flood of every moment, every conversation, every glance? It wasn't easy, not by any means. But it was part of him. All of it. The good, the bad, the beautiful, the painful. He couldn't separate himself from it, no matter how much he sometimes wished he could. I don't always cope, Liam admitted, his voice soft. There are days when it's too much. When I wish I could forget. But that's not how it works. It's not just the things I want to remember that stay with me. It's everything, the things I'd rather forget, and the things that have shaped me. And somehow, I keep moving forward. It's just part of being human. Zifra's eyes softened as they regarded him. For the first time, the alien didn't look at Liam with the arrogance they had shown at the beginning of this contest. They were no longer the superior species, secure in their intelligence and their flawless memory. They were humanized in a way. They saw the weight Liam carried, and for the first time, they saw something in him that went beyond his ability to recall words or events with perfect precision. I never considered, Zifra murmured, their voice quieter now. I always thought that memory was a tool. A tool to perfect our knowledge, to make us superior. But now I see it's more than that. It's you. It's what makes you who you are. There was a long pause. I don't think I've ever understood humans before. Liam's chest tightened at the sincerity in Zifra's voice. The challenge had been about much more than memory. It had been about connection, understanding, and the raw, unquantifiable parts of humanity that made them who they were. And now, in front of everyone, Zifra was acknowledging that. Zifra took a slow step toward Liam, their posture no longer stiff but open, almost hesitant. I was wrong, they said, their words carefully measured. I thought that humans were inferior in how you remembered things. But it's clear now that there's something in your memory that we lack. They hesitated for a moment before adding, I can't deny that. Liam's eyes softened. He had expected Zifra to concede the duel on the grounds of their perfect recall. But this was something different. Zifra wasn't just admitting that human memory was powerful. They were acknowledging that it had a depth they could never understand. A depth that could never be replicated by their own kind. There's no need to apologize, Liam said gently. You didn't know. And maybe I didn't either until now. Maybe it's not just about what we remember. Maybe it's about how it shapes us. How it shapes who we are. Zifra nodded slowly, the weight of Liam's words settling into their mind. They stood there for a moment, processing the revelation. Then, they spoke again, their voice quieter, more thoughtful than ever. Your memory is not just a record of your life. It is your life. And I think I finally understand that. Liam smiled softly, the burden of the duel lifting. It wasn't about winning or losing anymore. It was about the realization that memory, with all its imperfections, was a gift, one that could never be reduced to mere facts and figures. It was something that defined them, something that made them human in a way that no alien species could replicate. Zifra took another deep breath, their tone finally shifting to something resembling acceptance. I have learned something today. Perhaps we all have. That memory is not simply a tool. It is a living part of us, an essence that connects us to each other. Liam nodded, feeling a quiet sense of accomplishment. The challenge was over, but the understanding had just begun. Yes. It's what makes us more than machines. It's what makes us human. As the room filled with murmurs, Liam looked at Zifra, no longer an adversary, but an equal. They had both learned something profound. And as the duel ended, it became clear that there was no winner. There was only understanding, the kind that transcended memory itself.